today. So my name is Steve Judd, and I'm part of the business development team here at Nasstar, and I'll be your host for the next 45 minutes. And so for those of you who are not familiar with us, Nasstar is a Microsoft partner with deep expertise in M365 and Azure, and we help customers and organizations navigate exactly the type of challenges that we're here to talk about today. So I'm really glad you could make time for this one, because I think what we're going to show you is genuinely useful, regardless of where you are on your cloud journey. And if Azure Arc, extended security updates, or ESUs, as you'll hear mentioned on this call, or Microsoft Jumpstart are terms that are completely new to you, don't worry at all, because I have technical backup on the call and they will explain everything as we go. And by the end of the session, it will all make a lot of sense, I promise. So just from a housekeeping point of view, please drop any questions that you may have into the Q&A section. We've got time set aside at the end, but there's also gaps within the webinar where I'll be able to field the questions, and I will keep my eye on those as they come in. And of course, we'll follow up with the recording and the links after the session. So just very quickly, just as a run through, this is how the time's going to break down. So very shortly, I'll introduce the folks who are on the call. We'll walk through the ESU issue and then the options, of course, and then we'll go into a demo of Azure Arc and the Jumpstart dashboard for about 20 minutes or so. I'll then close out with next steps and any questions at the end. Like I've mentioned, we'll follow up on those, but really the demo is at the heart of this, where you see this thing working for real. So before we get into all the good stuff, let me introduce the two people on the call who are going to do the technical heavy lifting today. Rico, do you want to kick us off with a brief intro?
Yep, hi folks, I'm Ricardo Meakin, known as Rico. So yeah, I lead up the Azure capability within Nasstar. Been here 16 years, been in IT and infrastructure 24 years. So from very early days of infrastructure and on-premises, I help customers with their journey to the cloud, looking at their estates, their infrastructure, how can we optimize and modernize their businesses essentially within Azure.
Perfect. Cheers, Rico. Over to you, John.
Hey, thanks, Steve. And yeah, hey, everybody. Look, guys, thanks for inviting me to this call. Really interesting topic.
Thanks for joining.
Get stuck in. No, absolutely. So look, my name's John Lunn. I work at Microsoft. I'm one of the Cloud and AI platform leads, working with a group of customers, pretty much in line with what Rico does, on if any customers on their cloud journey looking to adopt some of those cloud services specifically around data and AI, and that goes right across the heart of their estate, which is really apt for this conversation now with that hybrid estate. It's not just cloud platforms. What have we got further afield? But yeah, topic of this talk is really prominent in my customer base at the minute. So yeah, like I say, thanks for having me on, and looking forward to getting stuck in.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you both. So really glad to have you both with us today, and I know the folks watching are in good hands. And just on that point, another bit of housekeeping. One thing worth mentioning before we get going, we've got the privacy settings in place on the session, so you're very welcome just to sit back and take it all in if you prefer. But there's also, as I mentioned, the opportunity to ask questions. So there's no pressure at all for you to put your name up in lights. But if you do want to ask a question, you've got the question and answer section for that, and we'll get those picked up for you. And again, I'll try to make sure that nothing gets missed while the guys are presenting. I'll keep my eye on that. So moving on then. So before we get into the demo, just want to frame this and really tell you about the reason why we put this call together. So an IT director at one of our Nasstar's public sector customers and I were having a conversation the other day. And he summed up really what many organizations are experiencing right now, picking up on John's point. So the customer knew that end support had passed for Windows Server 2012. He knew that more data were coming for things like SQL Server and other Windows OS versions, but he had no real clear view of what any of it was going to cost him. So he's got a mixed estate, some on-prem, some in Azure, and no single picture of where he was exposed or what he should tackle first. So this conversation is not unusual. Organizations are routinely caught off guard by ESU costs because they lack that central visibility to plan ahead. And what he needed and what other customers need was not a patch list, but a way to see his entire estate in one place, to understand that financial exposure coming down the track, to help him make those informed decisions about what to modernize and more importantly, when. So that's the problem today's session will address. Azure Arc and the Microsoft Jumpstart dashboards give you exactly that visibility. You can see your current ESU exposure. You can see what's coming down the line as well. And you can also see what your options look like. So you can make the right call on each workload with that full cost picture in front of you. So before we go any further, one important update. So in March, as many of you are probably aware, some of you may be not aware, Microsoft standardized, ESU pricing. So from the 1st of April 2026, any new ESU, and that includes SQL Server 2016 and Windows Server 2016, it costs the same list price wherever you buy it, Azure, on-prem, through any channel. So you might be thinking, well, why does this matter? Well, that means that there's no longer a cheaper place to simply keep paying for support. And as Rico will show, that makes the case to modernize stronger, not weaker. So the only real saving now comes from moving forward. Anyway, that's enough from me. I'm going to hand you over to Rico, who will take you forward from here. Back to you, Rico.
Thank you, Steve. So yeah, as you says, we have end of support. It's much closer than we think. It's 3 weeks away, right? So we've not got much time when it comes to SQL Server 2016, and that is essentially coming into extended support, so extended security updates. Now we've also got Windows Server 2016, January 27. Sounds a bit far away, but unfortunately it's not, and especially when you have to plan out to move away from there, it is not a lot of time. And then the 8th of July 27, we've got SQL 2014, and that's actually going to be out of extended security update support. So at that point, it's over. So based on those, you can actually still be running, unsupported, but it is really dangerous. You're risking unpatched vulnerabilities, failed audits, and awkward conversations with your insurers. So it's a tricky thing to do. And when support ends, you've essentially got 3 doors. So these 3 doors, you can do door 1, which is run unsupported, no patches, no fixes, no support. It's just not going to be compliant, and from a security perspective, it's a risk. Door number 2, you can pay for the ESUs, so you buy the extended security updates. Gives you more time, but unfortunately at that point you are paying a recurring cost each year. So you're paying and you're not really getting anything for it. You're still using the same operating system, same SQL servers, and it's not moving forward. So then we've got door number 3, which is to modernize. You spend the same budget moving forward, you get some value back, but it's not just for another year. So what essentially you're doing there is you're moving to future cloud products or future versions of SQL Server, Windows Server. You're getting something for your money at that point. You're not just spending money still. So ESUs, what does it do? It buys you time, no progress at all. All you're doing there is getting those security fixes. So you're paying for a lot of money towards that, and after 3 years you're back to square one because the extended security updates, they're gone. So at that point you do need to make a real serious decision. You've spent all that money. If you haven't moved forward, where do you go from that point as well? Just clicking buttons. So here's the way I would frame the choice. You're going to spend that money on the estate either way. The only real question is, what does the money buy you? You keep those ESUs and you're standing still, like I said, or as an example, you can modernize to something like Azure SQL Server, which is a cloud native solution within Microsoft Azure. And if you look at modernization solutions like that, you are always evergreen. You're never paying for extended support. You're not worrying about end of support. When there's new versions out, it's fully maintained by Microsoft. You don't need to look after any infrastructure. You don't need to patch it. It's something that lives within your business all the time, and it's always up to date at that point. So now you know that what you're thinking. How can you move everything from July? And to be honest, it's very difficult to move quickly in some infrastructure and workloads. You might actually have some workloads that need to stay on premises. It might be residency, latency, or regulation. So we know that. We know that you can't move everything to Azure. So if you have to keep it on premises, there is Azure Arc, and that's what we're going to talk about today. It's an Azure control plane that extends out to no matter where your servers live. So it can be on premises, it can be multi-cloud, it can be in Azure, it can be anywhere you want, as long as that can make an outbound connection to the Azure control plane. It uses HTTPS to get out to there. And once you do that, you then have a single pane of glass to see your infrastructure. So at that point, you can see all your infrastructure, no matter where it lives in your estate, and centrally manage that from Azure Arc. So what does it offer? You get management. So from a management perspective, we've got one inventory. So from there, you've got every server, no matter where it is. Much easier to manage your estate, much easier to know where your servers live as well. You get out-of-box monitoring and best practice assessments. That's just something that's really cool. So having a central place for monitoring, no matter where it is as well, much easier than having third-party tools on premises, one for a multi-cloud product, having to manage and understand multiple monitoring tools. This brings it all in-house into one central place. It supports Windows and Linux as well, which is really cool. So you've got your Windows versions and there is Linux versions as well. It's a really easy, lightweight plugin that you install. Once you've installed that, that'll then do all the magic. It'll add the extensions, reach out to Azure, and you'll start to see your data pretty much instantly at that point as well. From a security point of view, you can enroll and manage your ESUs through Arc, which is a little bit of an improvement from previously with volume licensing. Now you can do that as a flexible monthly billing subscription as well. You're using your Azure subscription billing, which means that now it's part of that. It's a monthly bill that you're going to get. You can see that as part of the bill rather than having to buy yearly through volume license or another software vendor. You get Microsoft Defender, which is for on-premises SQL servers. That's built in as well. So now you're reaching out to on-premise SQL and you're getting the great world of Defender in there. There's also modern identity and governance via Entra ID. So that is a feature from SQL Server 2022 onwards. You can now use Entra integration for that. And then we've got migrate. So we have SQL readiness, which allows you to essentially see the assessments of your SQL on premises and understand if it's in a place where you can actually migrate to other products, whether it be Azure SQL database or Azure SQL managed instance. And it also helps with near zero downtime migrations as well. It's really good if you have a rapid requirement to migrate quickly on a SQL. It is SQL scoped, I will add that, but there is other tools for full estate planning. One of the tools that I'm going to briefly mention later on is Dr. Migrate, something that we offer, and that's used for Windows and application modernization options as well. So, ESU is the hardware. Now the price is the same everywhere. You really need to choose how you buy and run your ESUs. There's two main options on how you get ESUs. There's the manual way, which is annual upfront purchasing, going through volume licensing. You essentially have to get a new software purchase. You have to, pay for that separately and then get the licenses for that. One of the difficult things with that is that you need to then get MAC keys. So the MAC keys is something that you need to apply to each of your workloads. So you have to put a new product key in there. That then allows that server to get visibility that you have ESU. Patches and tracking of patches, you're applying that server by server, so you're still having to use manual ways of monitoring your patching. You might have to use things like WSUS, Windows Server Update Services, which is a product that us legacy people have used for quite some time. it's a separate process. It's something separate that you need to manage, you need to procure and implement, and also manage and maintain it as well. So it's also easier to overbuy or leave a gap. This one's an interesting one because you might have a situation where you've got lots of servers and you need ESU. You've paid for all the licenses for your servers, and it's on a yearly basis. You've then started to decommission some of those servers. However, you're probably still paying for those ESUs because you've already committed to it for a year or so. So what does ESU in Arc provide? Well, it's enrolled in a few clicks from the portal. Much easier process. You basically instantiate a version of Azure Arc for your tenant, and from there you go through the wizards. It gives you some PowerShell scripts. You grab those, you go into your estate, you run that command. That does all the magic for you. It downloads the agent, it connects to the Azure data plane, it installs the extensions and registers itself. And within minutes, you can be up and running. You can then see your estate within Azure Arc. Pay as you go monthly billing, that's something that's really good. Again, today you might have a lot of servers, you need ESU today, and those servers have got planned decommissioning processes. So with that, when you're starting to decommission those servers, you remove them from Arc. At that point, you're no longer paying for the ESUs as well because you're paying for it monthly. Those servers no longer exist. It's much easier to manage your expenditure for ESU as well. It's keyless. Updates are delivered and applied automatically. You don't need to set up the Mac key like I said previously. It does it all automatically. As soon as you enroll in ESU with Arc, you then have the updates available for those workloads. And of course, on and off per machine, you stop paying the day you migrate. So it's much easier to basically tidy up your ESU estate as well. There's also Azure policies, which is something really cool that allows you to automatically apply certain features and settings on your workloads. As an example, you might be onboarding hundreds, if not thousands of servers. You don't have to go in individually and set up things like ESU. You can use Azure policies. As soon as it sees those servers in there, it makes sure that you've got ESU configured automatically as well. So, here's a cool thing. Once you've got Arc in place, it's effectively an Azure control plane for the whole estate. It's not just ESU. You've got one inventory, consistent governance, and Defender reaching on premises as well. You can leverage Arc for way more things than just ESU. It's a great place for managing your inventory, doing a patching and management. You can use things like Azure Update Manager. Rather than having separate patching products and third-party tools, you can now centrally patch from the Azure control plane. You've got Modern Secure Access. This is something that I use quite often as well, which is that you can now connect to those workloads from Azure as well. So using things like SSH or RDP, it's much easier to connect and manage your workloads no matter where they live in the world. It's just that single place. Go in, see your inventory, connect to it, manage it, all one place, much easier day to day. You've got governance, which is Azure policies, RBAC and tags. That's allowing you to look at how you manage cost management in the future. How do you make migration planning? We now have it in a single place. We can tag workloads. You can, as an example, we tag different phases for a migration on there, wave 1, wave 2. It allows us to allows us to make a plan much easier going forward. So, move at your own pace. This is the point of it. It's not a big all or nothing decision before July. What you're doing here is you're connecting to Azure Arc. You're starting to monitor and inventory your estate. It makes it much easier to make the plan to move forward, especially from a modernization point of view. Once you've got it in there, connected, you now have the tools in front of you to start looking at your costs going forward. No more are you going to have to bulk buy ESUs through volume license. We can start to look at the plan. What can we do in different phases? Here's the quick wins as an example, which we do quite often. Some workloads that might not be doing much in your infrastructure, we can see what that's doing through Azure Arc, and we can make a plan to quickly modernize that or even decommission it as well. So on top of Azure Arc, there is another product, which is the Arc Jumpstart. And I'm not going to talk about it because this is something that we're going to get a demo from John. So Azure Arc is the Microsoft's built-in management plane, and Azure Arc Jumpstart is something that lives on top of it. It's a value add, but rather than kind of take the fun out of that, I'll let John explain it.
Just before you jump, while you're taking control, John, and sharing your screen, we've had a question in from Dominique at Rico. So while John's seamlessly moving over and taking control, the question was, for organizations that have a mixed estate, some workloads on-prem, some already in Azure, how does Arc handle ESU coverage across both? And is the no-cost ESU benefit available regardless of where the workload sits?
I'm happy to jump in and take that one if you like, Rico. Yeah, it's a good question. And I think, Rico, you touched on this in terms of Microsoft have recently made a bit of a policy change on how customers can consume ESU and certainly around the pricing. So any Server OS and SQL OS version 2016 and above, as was pointed out at the beginning, regardless where you host those services, whether they're inside or outside of Azure, you're going to have to pay for ESU. If you have down level clients that may still just about be in, kind of the coverage for ESU, it's not affected. If you want to run those workloads in Azure, you will still get the free ESU, but that's for OS and SQL servers, lower than 2016. If they're Arc connected, you'll find that you're still having to pay for those ESUs. Okay, so hopefully that kind of clarifies that a little bit. But 2016 and above, we're looking at payment that's going to be needed. Rico, don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
No, it's essentially what it is, John. Earlier on, we did have the opportunity where we could move servers into Azure and get that free ESU. We've seen a big sort of increase in customers doing that for Server 2012 back in the day, or 2012 R2 and but going forward, you can't get away from that. You do need to pay for it, which makes it stronger. Or it gives you a stronger need to modernize going forward. You don't want to sit and stay on that for too long. You've only got a set amount of years for ESU. Make the plan now. Start planning to get away from that, whether it's modernization or upgrades to new versions of SQL and Windows.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, onwards and upwards then. So in the theme, thanks for the background there, Rico. I think hopefully people watching will understand now that there is a change of foot. Obviously there are lots of different options and sometimes it can be quite confusing and complex. And obviously that's not a great thing for certain customers. And look, guys, working with Nasstar over the last few years has been absolutely phenomenal. I know you guys have got some really good capabilities there to help kind of work through some of these complexities with customers. But I think today, obviously, like I say, pulling me into this call to have a chat with you around some of the functionality that we've got technically around Arc. You described it really well there, Rico. I think looking at what Jumpstart offers. So Jumpstart is it's a resource essentially for anything hybrid, anything Azure hybrid fundamentally. The little bit that we're going to delve into now is really to try and uncover those elements of your estate, whether they're in Azure, whether they're outside Azure and Arc connected, to help you and your business make those decisions around, okay, this is potentially the bill that we're going to look because we haven't modernized or we can't modernize or so on and so forth. Put the blocker in front of you. Hopefully this will give you a little bit of an idea on how you can start to unearth those kind of decisions to business leaders to kind of make a really good case for that modernization piece at the moment, because that's the reason for this kind of webinar. So anything to add there, Rico?
No, I think this is a great, John. One of the things with Jumpstart is that I was looking at this yesterday actually, and the community is building on top of this, right? So what we're getting here is you've got that cloud native Azure Arc, but people are seeing reasons to look at more data. They're finding ways to build out on top of that data plane. And it's quite important to know that by having your workloads within Arc, you're now able to leverage Microsoft Graph as an example, where you can plug in and collate data no matter where your servers are. And reports like this is helping customers. Even though these are community driven, you can create your own dashboards and products that work on top, which is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, so it's probably worth looking at this at the moment. You can see there is a little bit of a banner at the top there saying that there is some work going on around the Jumpstart website at the moment. It's still up there live right now. We may notice this change in the future, so we'll share the links out. But just for anybody watching, the Microsoft kind of hybrid conversation is all around what we call adaptive cloud. This is the Jumpstart website. There's a whole heap of resources in there, as Rico's just mentioned. A lot of this stuff is community driven by MVPs, Microsoft colleagues that will add, even yourselves, if you start to use this thing, you see a gap, feel free to write your own little report or script, whatever it might be, and submit it. But as you can see, there's a little bit of a banner at the top of the screen at the moment. However, the area that we're going to look into, so if we look there, we can see we've got all of these different requirements or abilities, demos, sandboxes across the entire adaptive cloud estate. We're going to drill into this little area called Jumpstart Drops. And if we bring in the Jumpstart Drops in view, this is where we can see that at the minute we've got 86 different elements, reports, scripts, things that have been shared from right across the community. And in particular, where I've sorted this by popularity, you can see the bit that we're going to look into, I'm going to give you a little bit of a run through now, is this Arc Insights PBI dashboard, which was developed, and a big shout out to Mark Jones. I believe he's moved on from Microsoft now, but he was one of the Microsoft solution engineers. And you'll see once we jump into the report, he's put an absolute fantastic amount of time and effort bringing some of this data to the forefront. So you as the customer can really make those informed decisions. So big shout out to Mark on that one. So that's the Jumpstart website. I'm going to jump over now. So if you click on this, you can kind of get a little bit of a sidebar. By the way, this is all free of charge. There's no charge for any of this. You can install this today or speak to the Nasstar team and they can help walk through all of this for you as well. You can see there's a getting started. It's a relatively straightforward piece of work that needs to happen just to kind of hook that up with your tenant and your subscription, and
it's one of those things, John, that's very lightweight, isn't it? We're using Power BI to actually create and generate these reports. We're not putting in, third-party products. We're not having to, set up SQL databases, anything like that. This is all sort of cloud-based reporting, plugging into your Microsoft APIs.
Yeah, good shout out, Rico. I mean, at the end of the day, all the data is pulled straight down into the semantic model inside that Power BI report. So it's a really, kind of standalone thing, like you say. There's no additional installations. So once you've run through all of that, you eventually end up with a report that looks a little bit like this. Now, all of this is, as you might expect, dummy and test data just for demo purposes only. But I'm not going to drill down into every little detail that you see on the screen, but I'll certainly walk through all the different tabs. And the last one here is the one that's kind of going to give us the conversation started with your management team, your senior leadership within your business to really help you understand what options you've got. But look, straight away, the service page, hopefully it's quite intuitive in terms of what you're looking at, but fundamentally, we're servicing the number of servers that you've got sat in Azure, the number of Arc connected servers. So if you've gone through that process of installing Arc, maybe you've installed your SQL agents on some of your SQL servers, you're going to be pulling through that rich set of data straight away. What this overview page on the servers gives you straight out of the box is you can start to see, right, okay, what servers am I using as your hybrid use benefits? Now, if you don't know what a hub is, fundamentally, that is the concept of if you are purchasing your Windows Server, Windows SQL licenses through a reseller on an old enterprise agreement, as an example, and you've bought software assurance, you've got the ability to turn on a hub in Azure, and that basically reduces the cost of your OS portion or server, SQL Server licensing portion. So you're not paying that on your Azure bill because you're already paying it as your EA with software assurance. That's what we call a hub. So straight away, I can see, actually, I've got a few machines here straight away that I'm paying pay as you go. So I am paying. So straight away, you might have some actions that you can take just by looking at that screen. Are we paying double paying our licensing for our servers and our SQL servers? I've got bring my own licensing. There's a number of ways you could look at this. We get a brief table. We can see straight away that we've got a number of resources that are Arc enabled, that are Azure located. We've got the operating system version, we've got the edition, and we've got a very quick chart to show us the licensing type. So straight away, you get a really good look and feel for your estate.
Yeah. I think that's a really good one, actually. The cost per license type is quite important. One thing I've seen in the past, John, with customers is that trying to manage the license type that they have within Azure, you get into the portal, you're trying to filter on what's actually pay-as-you-go, what's hybrid benefit, because we've seen customers that might actually have applied the wrong license at the start, and they have no easy way to find that. Something like this allows them to go in and manage that regularly as well. So if they're onboarding new servers, and this comes back to Azure Arc, we're bringing in your infrastructure from the on-premise, we're looking at how we migrate or modernize that into Azure. This is a type of report that even post ESU, you can still look at this from a license type. You can understand, why have I got 8 pay-as-you-go licenses? I need to do something about this, and look at other licensing models for that. So I think that's really good, something that I've missed in the past.
Yeah, look, it's there to, like you say, just to unearth some of these questions quite simply, rather than having to trawl through portals or run scripts. It's a really good way of looking at it, right? Okay, moving on. Next tab down, we start to drill into a little bit more of the detail now. We look at some of our SQL instances that we've got across the estate. When we look at this view now, we start to get a little bit more detail. So again, it's about surfacing the relevant information. And, again, we've got a similar view, but this time it's more through a SQL lens. So we can see the number of SQL instances that we've got stood up. Again, the number of those SQL servers that are in Azure versus Arc. And by the way, it's worth noting that there is an IaaS agent that you can put on an Arc server or turn on in your Azure SQL server, because there was a point where companies would spin up a VM, just a general VM from the marketplace, maybe in Azure, and they would then go and install SQL. Within Azure, that server wouldn't be recognized as a SQL server without this IaaS extension installed. Yeah. So it's probably worth noting that as well. So it's another extension you can install, but it surfaces all this rich information, and Azure treats that server as though it is a SQL server, essentially. Yes. So what we see here then is, a whole heap of data then around about our SQL estate. What SQL server versions are we running? What edition is it? Interestingly, what current patch level? How many patches behind? This is an old demo environment, so we're a little bit behind here. So again, from a management maintain perspective, you've got rich information. You can start to really understand your estate on this screen.
Fantastic.
We'll move quickly down just for the point of time, and we'll look at the SQL VM databases. So this is, again, drilling down now into that SQL estate, and we are looking at the database level now this time. So the point here is this Azure Arc Jumpstart drop. It covers a lot of stuff, just off the bat. It covers our Windows Server OS, it covers our SQL. We can start to use that to make informed decisions about, actually, we've got a bunch of servers here that have got a lot of databases on there, or they've got a lot of database size on there. Maybe we'll start off with some of the smaller databases, just as test, or, again, whatever it is, and however you want to manage your estate, you've got a little bit more visibility on that.
It's one of those things, John, again, based on some of the kind of assessments that I've done for customers, you've got SQL servers all over the place, and you're having to collate those databases, understand the size of them, put them into a central, sort of spreadsheet, and understand where you or how you modernize this. By having that Arc with these jump starts, you're getting that full picture up front, way easier to manage and plan ahead as well.
Exactly. It's just about, getting that planning in place, right? So quickly moving on, we mentioned extensions a few times, and that's fundamentally the way that any Arc connected servers can do different things, essentially. Through the extensions that you can plug into the Arc agent, you can start setting up specific extensions for specific services. And this view just gives us a bit of a look as to what kinds of agent extensions have we got installed across our estate. Again, it's a little bit off topic for today's webinar, but it gives you this rich information that you can use across the business to start making sure that you're on top of how you're managing that hybrid estate. But I think, look, let's move on, I think, Rico, into the point of this webinar. And I think the title is around, look, there's a cost potentially coming for all businesses that are running, down level OSs. in an ideal world, we would all be on top of that. We would all be at the latest OS version, but we all know in the real world there's a number of reasons why we can't be there. It's work pressures, it's complexity. Some services and app services aren't actually supported on down level versions. So there's a number of different reasons why businesses can't get there. So look, don't beat yourselves up about that. I mean, that is a very common thing across the board. I think it's important to try and understand what your options are. So when we talk about how to avoid ESU, Rico, you pointed out at the beginning of this call, yes, absolutely, you can pay for those security updates for an extended period of time. Are you moving your business forward? Is that money that's being paid that could be better invested elsewhere? And I think that brings us to this point now of how do we forecast what that is your ESU hybrid bill might be? And this is the page in this Azure drop that kind of gives you that really clear guide as to what this cost might be to you as a business. So using the dummy data and the dummy services and environments that we've got set up here, again, you can start to see straight away, as soon as you've got this set up, you can look at monthly, yearly, a 3-year commitment. What would that look like, and what services would actually require that ESU spend?
Yeah.
So you can see straight away we've got just under $2,000 a month on Windows ESU because of the number of Windows Server 2016 and Windows Server 2012 R2. By the way, if those servers were in Azure, they would be free of charge.
Yep.
But these 2016 servers won't be. And I just clicked on that, and you can see that, yeah, I mean, that is just a single server essentially that we've got there at the moment. So we could look into that and understand.
And straight away you can see the savings. So that's collating the information on the costing based on what the product is, the cores, the license SKU. Everything's there in that dashboard, interactive dashboards. I should have said that there, that you can drill into and get more detail, which is amazing.
No, absolutely. And I think this is the point, right? At the end of the day, if you've got this on a screen that you can say, right, we are going to be faced with this bill for our Windows Server ESU. This is the bill, just shy of $8,000 a month on SQL. You can do the rough maths there. We're looking at roughly 10K a month just on ESU. That's 120K in a year. Is there a way that you could reinvest that money to modernize?
Yeah.
And I guess, Rico, that's the point of where we're at now in this conversation, right?
So, as an example, looking just at the bottom part of that, you've got Azure modernization path, estimated Azure run cost. Now, these are really important because you can look at some quick wins there as well. You can look at, what server have you got and what's actually running on it just now, and is that an easy, quick win to modernize to another, product or solution? A good example is, and I've seen this, John, where a customer, they've got a real large enterprise cluster of SQL. They've had it in place. They might have had multiple applications and products that were connected to that. They've started to modernize those applications and products. They've maybe moved to like SaaS solutions as well. And now they're paying for all that infrastructure. They're paying for the licenses and potentially ESU, but they might only have, maybe 1, 2, 3 databases running on that at that point. So you've paid and you're managing all that infrastructure, but now you're not actually starting to move forwards. Let's modernize the last remaining databases or applications on there and look at the decommissioning plan for those legacy, servers. Looking in here, you can see that. You can see the database count. You can see how many cores are on there. Again, right sizing is something I've seen in the past. We've got customers that have multiple very large SQL servers that were great back in the day because they had lots of applications running. They're still paying for that CPU, and the memory and the licenses for that. And they might only have 1 or 2 databases that don't actually need all that performance anymore. So let's look at how we right size that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's a really valid point, Rico. At the end of the day, times move on. When you can modernize, there is a lot of money to be saved, and I think that's the purpose, right? That's the point here, is that do this assessment. If you can't do it yourself, call on the Nasstar team. They will happily help you work through all of this and then help you work out where those modernization opportunities are. I think fundamentally is where we're at. But yeah, hopefully that made a little bit of sense, and it was a good overview of the Jumpstart site. Are we going back to you now, Rico? I think, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. There's a question while I'm just putting the deck back on. There's a question. What is the typical timeline for deploying Azure Arc to get to get full visibility of your ESU exposure?
I would say very quickly, based on the fact that it's a single agent install. As long as you've got the outbound connectivity in place for your estate, outbound HTTPS only to the Azure data plane. You literally go into your tenant, you set up Azure Arc, you get the script that you run that on your estate, your infrastructure. At that point, if the connectivity is open to the Microsoft cloud, it will register, install the components, and you're pretty much up very quickly. You'll start to see the data come through into the Azure portal. You'll be able to see the server, the model type, and at that point, you can then look at how you enable ESU. So you enable the ESU on those servers as well. It's a value add on top of Azure Arc, right? So first of all, you get Azure Arc in there. You see that estate, you get visibility of it, and then from there you can start to leverage things like turning on ESU. Do I have a number? No, but it's very quick. It's surprisingly quick. There's not a lot of effort, and it's all sort of real time.
It's probably worth adding, Rico, as well, is that for the security conscious, there are, like you say, the public way over the internet. You can also set up Arc via the private way. So if you do have security,
that's true.
You can put it via the private network. So obviously things like that might take a little bit of time to get set up if you go through your security networking teams. But to go and deploy it on a single box, provided you've got all access, I think the install is you're talking minutes, and then you'll get data flowing per server. So, and you can script all of that, of course. So depending on the size of your estate and how big a bang you want to go, but a one-off machine is really quick.
Perfect. Well, I've got a number, Rico, and the number is less than 5 minutes left. So, so
okay.
We've got a couple more slides to go through. Over to you.
So yeah, I'll quickly just kind of move on to what you just said there, John, about that you can plug in from anywhere. So the thing with Arc is it is hybrid and multi-cloud aware. So it doesn't really matter where your infrastructure lives. It can be on premises, it can be another public cloud, it can be your own private data centers. As long as you've got that outbound connectivity, you can get that connected into Azure Arc. And as soon as you've got that, that's where you get all the great features of Arc. Not just ESU, we are focusing on ESU today, but you get so much more with Azure Arc. And by actually getting that implemented and plugged into your estate, you're getting that visibility of your workloads and applications. You can then much easier plan migrations and modernizations as well. So it's opening up windows that you can visibly see your estate from. So yeah.
Over to you, Rico, for the last couple of slides.
So yeah, that was a hybrid and multi-cloud. So from exposure to a costed plan. Jumpstart shows you what you were exposed to. It helps you with the kind of community reports and dashboards. From there, you've got so much that you can see from your estate. However, there's another little tool that we use quite a lot for our customers, which is Dr. Migrate, and I just want to quickly mention that because I did previously. So Dr. Migrate is a really cool tool that allows us to do a full workload and server assessment. So it's something that we use quite often to help us plan out migration and modernization journeys. It helps us to decide on the right path for a customer as well. So not always is it going to be a cloud native solution because of other requirements. This helps us in how we migrate or re-platform or refactor those workloads as well. So it's something that we also provide, and we also can most of the time offer funding on that as well, Stephen. So it's something that we can help you out with. If you've got estate or infrastructure, it could be sprawled across multiple locations, and you're looking for an assessment where you want to understand, right, do I want to stick with ESUs for these workloads, or do I want to start looking at what else I can do? Should I modernize to other products and solutions within Azure? We can help you with a tool like Dr. Migrate. So 3 things to take away. the deadline. It is real. We've got 3 weeks until the support ends for Server 2016, SQL Server 2016. We've got others following on, which is, coming in 2027 as well. ESUs alone mean standing still. You're paying for it year after year. You're getting really nothing for your money. All you're doing is kind of delaying the inevitable, which is to basically migrate or modernize. And ARC, it helps you get there. It helps you to manage and make it more achievable as well. So it's one of those tools, out of the box, it's completely free. It's when you start to add on features and products like ESU that you pay for it. But, give it a try. If you've got Microsoft Azure, you might as well have a look at Azure ARC for your on-premises infrastructure. Okay, so the Nasstar difference, as we call it, recommendations like this. And Steve, if you've got anything to say about this as well, then let me know. But, we are a modern MSP. What we do is we help our customers not only plan for the future, but we help to manage their estate and look at other, more future products and services. It can be data and AI, but we live in an AI world nowadays. We help our customers move towards that sort of journey. We're proactive. We spot the risks and we help with savings. We're looking at monitoring, we're looking at cost optimization. We're helping our customers ensure that they don't get to the point where they have to worry about ESUs. As much as I love to say, we do have a lot of customers that are in that sort of space, unfortunately. We help to plan ahead with that as well. We're one partner that does multiple specializations. We have M365, we've got Azure. We also have specializations in on-premises and multi-cloud products and services as well. And we provide a managed wrapper around that. We're Microsoft experts. We provide funding as well, and we get funding through Microsoft. So we can help you with this journey. We can look at the funding options that are available that are kind of tailored to your needs, and we can help to get you that funding as well. And yeah, we're here to help. If there's anything that we can help you with, no obligation advice. We are more than happy to reach out, have a chat with you, talk about what's on your mind with your estate or security or anything like that. We're here to just help you out. So, 2 ways to take the next step. We just saw the Azure Arc Jumpstart, and there's a link on there. We'll make sure that you've got that link. But thanks again, John, for showing the demos. I think that looks really good. If you're already using Azure Arc, have a look at the Jumpstarts, right? Get a feel of what the kind of reports are that people will be providing. That's going to be that extra layer on top of Azure Arc, which you're already using. If you don't have Azure Arc, certainly have a look. Go and reach out to the documentation, see if it's something that's going to make use in your estate. Or come to us and we'll help you out with that as well. We can do an ARC assessment where we can help you to get onboarded to our ARC. We can help you with the reports, show you how to navigate through Azure Arc and how to manage that and your estate as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So a big thanks, Rico, and a big thanks, John, for your time today. I really appreciate it. And I hope everyone watching can see just how much clarity that gives you on the area that we spoke about. For what has been for a lot of organisations a bit of a black hole. Just bringing it back to the customer we mentioned at the top of the call, they now deploy ARC, they now use the Jumpstart dashboards, which John walked you through and Rico's talked about, and they use those visualizations as part of their business plans when they're applying for funding to do things like migrations. They can drag that information out and actually show, yes, we need some money to do some migrations, but it's going to avoid paying for these ESU costs that are coming down the line, so they can front load these pieces of work with the financials to show that this thing will pay for itself. So as Rico said, if you need any assistance, please reach out and give us a shout if you'd like to speak to us a bit more. We've blown over time, so thank you very much to everybody who's watching. We do appreciate it. And if there's nothing else, we wish you a very, very good Thursday and a happy weekend when it comes. All the best, John, Rico, everyone watching. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, John.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.